Hello. Hey guys. That was awkward. Hold on. This is my hi. Can you hear me? That was awkward. Hold on. This is my hi. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, you can. Okay. Hey. I was gonna do this isn't gonna be very I was gonna do a pre-recorded video. Hi Kyle. I was gonna do a pre-recorded video, but then we're here, so this might not be the longest live, but it's gonna be a good one. Hi, how are you all? Yay! All right, this will be a interesting live. I've been watching all of the footage from the mass deportations, and you've been seeing all these videos pop up about these empty job sites, and I wanted to know, are these real videos? Is it just propaganda? Or do we maybe have way more people in this country working illegally than we previously thought? And I think several things are true. Before we get to that, though, I wanted to show you something that just popped up. I shared it on my Twitter. It does have to do with deportations, but I wasn't expecting to go in this direction. Hello. I wasn't expecting to go in this direction, but I just found it rather interesting. So Trump signed, hold on, let me take this down for a second. Trump signed an executive order. Before we get into the job sites, we will get to that, but I thought you would be interested in this. So Trump signed an executive order on January 29th, and it was additional measures to combat anti-Semitism. So basically, he's going to crack down on college students who are here on visas who are engaging in anti-Semitism. So it says, my administration and will continue to fight anti-Semitism in the United States around the world on December 11th, 2019. Okay, so he's fighting it on campuses. As we know, it got really, really bad. Now, I'm always for pro free speech, but you also went and we had all these protests happening after the October 7th attack. It got really, really interesting. It got a bit violent on some of these campuses, and I will say that it got pretty nasty. Um, I remember I was actually in New York City on October 7th. Earlier stream had crispy internets. I was on my phone on the earlier one. See, this is why I try to record, I get distracted. Uh, I was actually in New York City on October 7th, and I will say this, a lot of people forget, but right after the attack, way before Israel even responded, before anyone had the chance to respond, when it was just an attack, there were people celebrating in Times Square. There were hundreds and hundreds of people in Times Square celebrating this attack that happened. So I do think there's a difference between someone who might be pro-Palestine and be, critical of the Israeli government, but it goes into a different territory when I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But anyway, look at this video that I just popped up. I didn't even have a chance to watch it yet, so let's watch it together. I want to see what this is. So the US has decided to cancel a student visa of Lua Lahun. I don't know how to say her name, a Chinese grad student at UCLA. She's been supporting Hamas sympathizers on campus, which is already a red flag. Okay, let's see what's happening here. Okay, so that was her getting arrested during the campus occupation at UCLA. All right, let's see what's going on here. But wait, she's also a member of China's Communist Party and has a shady history with some serious legal issues. The situation just highlights a bigger problem. China seems to ignore some of the crazy stuff their people do around the world. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're here, I don't care where you're from. If you're, in my opinion, if you're here on a student visa in the United States of America and you're engaging, some of these protests got really violent. It's one thing to have a freedom of speech and talk about things you believe in. It's another thing to actively intimidate people on your own campus when you're here on a visa. And that's where a lot of these protests started going into. They started going into the territory of just plain old intimidation to American students. So, there is that. I'm glad they're cracking down on that. Hello, hello. Okay, some people are saying bad camera. Hopefully that will fix up. My connection is a little bit bad right now. So it's not terrible here. I'm looking on X. Might not be the best, but we kind of have a bad connection right now. All right, so let's go to some of these work sites. First, I want to play this video. This was Jake Tapper. I absolutely love this clip, but he brings up the whole point. What are we going to do about all of our agriculture workers, our farming? This is a point that a lot of people bring up. What about all of our food? What about all of our agriculture workers? Well, number one, are you for cheap labor? Are you for indentured servants essentially in our country who are not allowed to unionize? They can't fight back for workers' rights. They can't fight back for fair wages. And basically, a lot of these corporations and a lot of these big companies are hiring illegal workers, displacing American workers because it's cheaper labor and because they cannot unionize. So that's essentially the argument that Stephen Miller brings up to Jake Tapper. And just look at Jake Tapper's food. So he's so mad. And I heard someone joke earlier, I think the person who the media is going to hate even more than Trump is going to be Stephen Miller.
Growth. The Department of Agriculture has between 2020 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So how does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in the country legally does up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, also don't want to see even more?
It's going to get good. So what are you saying, Jake? What exactly are you saying? What are you saying, Jake?
Higher prices in groceries.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake. You're just asking the question that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden floods. Mm-hmm. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that
are. But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want to this. I'm explaining to you and your audience.
I don't want to have I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm explaining
you can come back
to you
and we
your
can
audience.
Talk about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They're in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. but there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws. And as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
So
I love, by the way, that whole interview was about 19 minutes long and it's brilliant. Who's going to pay? Exactly. Who's going to work our slave wages? Do you hear yourself? Do you actually hear yourself? And let me just go back to, hold on. I saved all this on my Twitter because I wanted to share it all with you guys. Let me just go back to, do you remember Kelly Osbourne, what she said? And this is what mass illegal immigration does. When you're importing mass amounts of people from third world countries, you're basically creating a parallel society. You're creating not only a class divide, a racial class divide, a brand new thing, because you have people in this country that are not documented. They're not going to be eligible for certain jobs, except for the people that want to take advantage of their cheap labor. And it's so funny because in Los Angeles, I have another personal story to tell you in just a second. Exactly. Who's going to clean your toilets? And that's what Kelly said, because in Los Angeles, that's how it is. They have so much illegal immigration that you'll walk down, go take a beach walk, go walk in a nice neighborhood, go walk in a nice park. You will see stroller after stroller after stroller of Hispanic woman with a white child. Everyone's housekeepers are Hispanic. And that's where this clip from Kelly, she's actually being on. This is probably what she actually thinks.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that
No.
you know what I mean. Like what I'm saying.
There's more jobs to be
in LA. They always and if you kick every
What she was probably about to say. In LA, they're always cleaning your toilets because that's true. And that's what happens. And you just create this odd society. Isn't that so funny? All right, now let's look at some of these. So basically what you have happening are you have these videos that are popping up like this one of people saying that these work sites are now empty because people are afraid to go to work.
Guess what? All people, you see where I'm at, right? Home Depot. You see where I'm at, right? Home Depot. Guess what? All the time, there's about 100 guys here. 100, 200 guys. Today, there's nothing.
None.
There's nobody here. And if you see all the way at the end, there's a police officer. So they're scared. I don't know why the police officers are here, but they're all the way over there. This is crazy. I wonder what's going to happen with the cost of labor on the construction sites. It's probably going to go up. And supposedly there's a bunch of empty apartments now because the people that were staying in them, they're not staying in them anymore because they're afraid and they're leaving. Anyway, let's see what happens. Talk to you.
I'll tell you what's going to happen.
See where
It's so funny because people are like, the price of your Twinkies are going to go up. Oh, the price of your bagels and your Twinkies are going to go up. I think it was the president of El Salvador that was he did something similar when he took over. By the way, he's extremely popular with the people of his country. He's gotten his murder rate reduced by an exorbitant amount. It's a lot safer. It's a lot cleaner. And people said the same thing to him. He was like, well, you know what? If we need to pay a little bit more for a Twinkie, he obviously didn't say Twinkie. That's our thing. Then isn't it worth it to get all the corruption out? Isn't it worth it to get all of the indentured servitude out, to get all of this cheap labor out? And did you hear what else he said? The apartments are empty. You know what else is going to happen? The price of your housing is going to go down. That's going to go down too. And actually, what did he say? Labor will go up. Yeah, if labor, guess what? If the cost of labor goes up, then people have more money to spend. It might hurt for a second, but the more it hurts, the more you realize how rampant this problem is and how many corporations and businesses abused illegal immigration to get cheap labor. And so they didn't have to put it, they don't like American workers. American workers can unionize. American workers have rights. Okay, let's look at this next video.
Running out of food and there being a... Hey guys, so if y'all think that the people are fear-mongering about food and our communities running out of food and there being a big balloon and there being economic problems, this is in Central Illinois. This factory, which is next door to my home, is the Bimbo Bakery factory, and next door to it is 2 more factories, and then across the street is another factory. This parking lot should be full. This factory runs hours a day, 7 days a week. It's
and that exhaust there is just ventilation.
That's just the ventilation. This would typically
there should be a huge smoke column somewhere right around here going that way with the production oven.
And if you look at that parking lot, it is empty. This is shift change. It is the middle of shift change. And the entrance to the parking lot is right there. And this is our only street in and out of town to get over there. And as you can see, there are no cars. So this is our bakery, Bimbo Bakery. They make things like the English muffins. So expect there to be a fucking problem when it comes down to our food. And
oh no. Oh no. We can't have English muffins? Jack, what's his name? Jack Poso Bake. Am I saying his name right? He's with Human Events. I tried to find this segment so I could show it to you. But I'll let you know what he was talking about. But he had a segment with a woman. Oh man, I wish I could find it. I think I do have it actually. He had a segment with a woman who is from Los Angeles. And I like the ones from Los Angeles because just give me 1 second. It's worth the watch. We can get it. Why do I have to be so active on here? Now I can't find it. All right, well, he had a segment where he was seeing these videos as well. He was seeing all these videos going around of empty parking lots. And he was like, I didn't think the problem was that bad. Is it really this bad? And the woman from Los Angeles was like, yeah, I actually think it is. And she was explaining. But I have my own personal story from Los Angeles. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's watch this.
So they were short-staffed, and even some of the wait staff didn't show up. And it's all gotten me to thinking, and when we put this out as our question of the day, it's 1776 at humanevents.com, 1776 at humanevents.com. Have you experienced anything like this? And if this is true, is it possible that they've been lying to us about the exact number of illegals in this country? And so before we get to some of these emails that have come in, because it's been flooded, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, PG.
Yeah, my husband and I have been saying for a few years that there's way more people here than they think. I mean, I think LA County, LA City is about 50% Hispanic. I think the white population of LA is down to something like 25%. So, I mean, at least in terms of Los Angeles, legal or illegal, the Great Replacement, not only is it real, but like it's over, you know. But my husband has a long commute, so he drives all around the city through downtown, and he would come home and say, you know, just around MacArthur Park, Echo Park, downtown LA, there's just dozens, crowds on every corner of these, like, you know, brand new, you know, South American immigrants. And they have huge tables where they're selling all of the goods that were looted from CVS, you know, all the shampoo and the makeup, that's all shaving cream, that's all for sale at these little illegal tables. And there are, in the last year, taco stands, like pop-up street taco stands on literally every corner up here in the San Gabriel Valley, all over LA. And these are unlicensed. I mean, you remember they were arresting kids who would start like a lemonade stand, right? So these are now happening with no license everywhere. So if you can believe your lying eyes, it is way more than they're reporting.
I believe it. Especially in Los Angeles. I wanted to focus on Los Angeles a little bit because they have such a high concentration of illegal immigrants. And I lived there for a while, so I would see it too. And I actually saw, they call it the Great Replacement. I saw it happen in real time within a matter of a year at a place that I worked at. I've talked about this before. You might have seen me mention this on a different app, not sure. But so I worked at a place when I was living in Los Angeles and I was heavily auditioning for acting roles. Obviously, I couldn't have a normal job. So the only job I could have was working part time at a restaurant. It was very flexible. And I worked at this place, prime real estate, right in West Hollywood, right in like right around where like the Rainbow, like all these historic places are, the old Tower Records, Viper Room, all of that stuff. It was a, kind of a staple in that area. And it was like a gastro pub, very like Americana, a sports bar. And it was known for having like a lot of good looking women that were waitresses there, kind of like a Hooters, a little bit better than a Hooters, but kind of like the all American type of good looking girl would work there and be your server. It went from that to what happened was the owner promoted his girlfriend, who I'm not sure what her legal status is. I actually have a feeling she wasn't here legally, but I don't know. So I'm not going to say that. He promoted her to a manager position and she had hiring power. As soon as she got into that position and started having hiring power, we turned into Little Mexico. And I'm not saying that to be mean. It is what it is. That's what happened. She hired all Hispanic people, a lot of illegal immigrants, a lot of Hispanic people. She was even going to Mexico and buying furniture from Mexico and furnishing. I'm not even joking. Furnishing the place in furniture that she got directly from Mexico. And it got to the point where like we used to be, I mean, it's a bar, but we used to be like a family. You used to be able to communicate with everyone and we used to be able to communicate with the kitchen. And then it got to the point where you couldn't communicate with the kitchen anymore. Half of them could not read the tickets. So they would mess up the food that they were making. And then when you tried to bring it back because it was messed up and the customer wasn't happy, you couldn't communicate with them. Sometimes they would just choose not to make stuff because they just couldn't read the ticket. So if it got really busy, they would just disregard some of the tickets. And 30 minutes later, you're like, hey, where's my pizza? And they never made it. And then they would also, it was a lot of men that worked in the kitchen. They would sit there and look at us servers, us females, and they would laugh at us right in our faces. They would say the most derogatory things to us. And they just thought it was so funny. And they would make fun of us and laugh right in our faces. And they thought it was funny because they thought we couldn't understand them. And most of us couldn't most of the time. But we did have a few girls that understood Spanish and would tell us what they were saying. And there was just like, it got to the point where I quit. It was 7:30 on a Saturday evening and I literally walked out of that job. But that's what happens. That is the Great Replacement on a small scale. And by the way, you're not just replacing like white people. I don't know why people make this about race. It's not about race. It's about people that are here legally versus illegally and culture and respecting the culture that you're coming to. And I will say there's something admirable about how they kind of stick to their own and how she only wanted to hire people that she identified with. And by the way, she wasn't even hiring the most qualified people. She was not hiring qualified people. It was almost like a charity thing. She was hiring the people that she knew to give them a job, to help them. But it wasn't about the betterment of our establishment. It was for her to do charity for them. And then we all had to suffer for it. And I speak to regulars all the time. I actually spoke to one just a week ago. He doesn't go there anymore. A lot of people don't go there anymore because it's a different place. And that's what happens. And that's what she was talking about. And if you live in LA, you know this. And Kelly lives in LA. That's why she has that warped view of what illegal immigrants do in this country. Hello, old bag. I like it when people have funny names because I can say them. But oh, and this is what I also wanted to bring up too. So, speaking about jobs and Americans being displaced, I pulled this up. And just not understanding exactly how many people we have in this country, how many people are working here. This was something that happened under the Biden administration. I'm not sure a lot of people know about. Nearly 65K more foreign truck driver visas made available to trucking companies for 2025. Are you going to tell me we don't have Americans to be truck drivers? The United States government has nearly doubled the number of visas that allow certain trucking companies to hire foreign truck drivers. The Department of Homeland Security has opened up essentially 65,000 H-2B visas for the fiscal year 2025 from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025. These newly released H-2B visas are in addition to the pre-existing 66,000 temporary non-agricultural worker visas mandated by Congress yearly. 45,000 of the new visas will be offered first to returning foreign workers from the last 3 years, while the remaining visas will be granted to workers from Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and Honduras. Okay, let me just tell you something I know about Haiti. The reason in Springfield, Ohio, you keep seeing all of those accidents is because most people do not have their driver's license in Haiti. And I don't know if you've ever traveled abroad. Oh, I meant to show you that. I'm sorry. That's what I was reading. I don't know if how abroad you've traveled, but in a lot of countries, they mentioned, the driving is very different. It's very, very different. And in Haiti, hold on, I'll pull it up for you. This is why in Ohio with the hands, because Haiti don't drive. Okay, in Haiti, there are 3.8 cars per 1,000 people. So for every 1,000 people, a little less than 4 drive. Those are just odd countries to import truck drivers from. And I feel like we have truck drivers available here in the country. We keep being told that these visas are for, certain skilled work, but we're finding out it's being used for truck driving, it's being used for lifeguarding, it's being used basically everywhere. Hi, Judy. Judy's here from England. Judy, what time is it in England right now? And you know what? Can we switch gears? I wasn't going to be on for a second, but if you want to hang out, we can switch gears. Let's hang and switch gears. Let's do that. We got a few people here. There's another issue, and this does have to do with immigration, so it does tie in a little bit. So there's another issue that's going on in California right now. I made a video about it yesterday. But let me see. Do I got you guys? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Used to be ex-cons could get jobs in construction and landscaping and make a living. Absolutely. And that's a really cool thing for a lot of American blue collar work. You can start your own construction business. My uncle started his own. My uncle my uncle actually was in and out of jail. Everyone has that uncle. It's like the best uncle to have if you're a girl. Every girl needs an uncle who's been in and out of jail a few times and who's kind of scary. But I do have that uncle. But he also started his own construction company. You're absolutely right. That's his job. That's what he did. My man is from India. Illegals talk to him. They hate Americans. Of course they do. And obviously that's not every Indian. That's obviously not your husband. But no, they do. You can hear the way they talk. They don't care to come and take whatever they can get, and our niceness has been just completely taken advantage of. And I think you weed the bad ones out when you stop illegal immigration. I'm sure your husband is here legally. I'm sure he's an awesome guy. You weed out the bad that you don't want by making sure everyone comes in the right way. Oh, and okay, so a lot of these sanctuary states, this is why I brought up these two headlines. So what a lot of these sanctuary states are doing also, this is where I'm switching gears, so I'm sorry. I'm going to go into housing now with illegal immigration and not so much jobs. But I think this is worth talking about too. If you remember the first clip. No, he's here legally. No, that's what I assumed you said. I assumed he was here legally. That's why he's an awesome dude. He probably loves America, and but when you lower the threshold for people to come in, now you're enabling more people that just don't respect us, don't respect our rule of law to come in. Yeah, I figured he was here legally. So housing, the guy in the Home Depot video, he said even some of these apartments are empty now. So one thing you see if you're not allowing, so a lot of illegal immigration also makes housing costs skyrocket. It's happening in Springfield, Ohio, because you'll have about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Haitians in an apartment unit that's meant for one family. So they can clearly afford, since they're all piling in on the pot, they can afford to pay for more housing. Or what happens when you bring in a bunch of low-income people, now you need more low-income housing. And I find it really interesting that I hope this doesn't happen, but I find it really interesting too, how a lot of these sanctuary states are now saying there's a lot of the sanctuary states that are bringing in mass amounts of illegal immigrants who are doing low wage working are now saying we have a housing crisis and we need high density low income housing. Look what's happening right now. It's happening right now. Pacific Palisades rebuilding must include low income housing. Supervisors aim to suspend state laws in Altadena that could speed higher density. So they're trying to put high density, lower income housing in Altadena and Pacific Palisades, where they just got decimated by these fires. And these areas historically are just beautiful single family home areas. They're not areas that you would see a bunch of high density, low income housing. And then I have these two videos of, oh, it's not here. I wonder, here, we'll just go into a little bit of my video. So stay with me. So a few weeks ago, I made a video about Gavin Newsom and this conspiracy theory, or really not because he just said it, about how all of these Western state governors are trying to acquire land on the cheap to put in low income housing. Well, now we have it here. Pacific Palisades rebuilding must include low income housing, Los Angeles law. Supervisors aim to suspend state laws in Altadena that could speed up higher density housing after fire. And before we get super into it, let's just go back to September of 2021. Governor Newsom signs a bill ending single family zoning in California. If you want to pause to read more about that. And here we go. Governor Newsom's California comeback plan will lead to over 84,000 new housing units and exits from homelessness, including today's announcement that $1.75 billion in affordable housing funding for the new California Housing Accelerator. Because there's a housing crisis. And you're going to hear this all over Western countries. There's a big housing crisis. We need more housing. We need more affordable housing. These are all. Yeah, so you'll see the same argument being made in Italy, Ireland, all of these people that are mass importing people. You'll hear Ireland. Ireland is so fascinating to me. Ireland is mass importing. They are literally overwhelming towns of 300 to 400 people with hundreds of single-aged men and putting them in these old buildings. And then they're like, we have a housing crisis. We need to build high-density, low-income housing. Stop importing fake asylum seekers, and maybe you wouldn't have that problem. Also, the same states and countries that are importing mass amounts of illegal immigrants. In fact, from the Pew Research Center in 2022, they estimated that California currently had about 1.8 million people that are in the country
1.8
illegally.
million.
They're basically trying to turn some of our most beautiful lands into communist China. They want high density, low income apartment buildings rather than single family homes. But I think that every single person would agree the American dream has always been
Owning your
about
own home.
owning your own home, especially those single family homes that help people get started. You want your kid to have a backyard. You don't want them sitting on a porch just staring at another high density building. But that's exactly what they're trying to do to these areas. And somewhere, especially the Pacific Palisades, Altadena, those are known for being really beautiful and family places, not places where you see high density, low income housing. And I'm going to show you proof that this is exactly what they're doing. But first, let's look at during this housing crisis, during this affordability crisis, what Gavin Newsom has been trying to do. He's been trying to stop the deportation of people that are in the country illegally who would be criminals first. And you'll find that in a lot of these states that are pushing for these units, they are all sanctuary states. Democrats, okay, have left the state assembly to meet in private for a brief recess. So this is what they're trying to pass in California right now. They just scrapped it, which is good news. Gavin Newsom's special session to vote on aimed at taking on Donald Trump. The first bill was to allocate $25 million for immigration related legal services in the state with the goal of fighting back against deportations. Keep in mind, they're going after criminals first. The second bill would allocate $25 million to the California Department of Justice to help California Attorney General Rob Bonta fund their lawsuits against Donald Trump.
Illegal immigrants facing deportation.
Look at
Tell
the
you what
date.
the grant is for. I don't know that I can give you that level of guarantee.
On this fund, the grants that are going to go to these nonprofit groups, what sort of activities do you anticipate they're going to do with these grants? What are they going to do with the money? Would they use our tax dollars to defend illegal immigrants from deportation proceedings? Is that part of what they do?
Oh, I would have to.
Does someone here know?
If the deportation hearing is under federal jurisdiction, the Equal Access Fund is for civil matters.
And you're sure that this money and illegal immigrants from deportation proceedings?
Again, to reiterate, these
Sorry. It'll come back.
legal proceedings
Right.
only.
So not deportation. Is deportation not a civil proceeding? Okay.
Ruh-roh.
Again, it is the
Don't have
intent.
clarity. This is incredibly tone deaf to be moving forward with these bills at this time when we have residents who still are not in their homes, and we should be focused on wildfire recovery, relief, and
Yep.
prevention. And I don't think that
The good news is after that session, it looks like these bills got scrapped. So it says breaking, we did it for now. California Democrats were so rattled by my amendment to bar funding for illegal immigrant criminals and politicians who protect them that they canceled their vote on the reckless $50 million to Trump proof bill. I can't talk.
I talk for a
This
living.
is what happens when the GOP fights on a winning issue. Yes, this was so inappropriate to even introduce at this time when you have people that aren't even allowed to go back to their homes yet. $50 million to fight. And then you also want to fight to keep illegal immigrants in your state, who, by the way, having a mass amounts of illegal immigrants in your state, it raises housing problems. It creates a housing crisis. Not only that, it lowers wages because all these businesses are able to hire cheap labor. How are 1.8 million people surviving in California illegally? Because they're being hired illegally. They're being paid lower wages, and they also need housing. What kind of housing are they going to need? Lower income housing. So you have these governors, and I'm going to get more into this in a second. I have proof for you. You have these governors that are literally creating a housing crisis and then forcing this hideous communist China style housing units on these areas that historically don't want that. That is not the American dream. The American dream is to be able to own your own property. But when you have a housing crisis, when you have a higher demand than what you have available, now you're creating that crisis. Also, you would probably have less traffic if you allowed some of these, at least the criminals, to be deported. Now, remember when I told you there are these governors and I have proof? First of all, I'm not going to sit here and say that anyone did this on purpose. I'm not that kind of person, but I will say that they will use and take advantage of a crisis to push their unpopular agendas, which I believe is what they're doing. So let's go to Gavin Newsom. This was Gavin Newsom. This clip went viral because people were like, what? This is Gavin Newsom as the embers were still burning, before all the fires were even put out. This is what he said on TV, very awkwardly, I might add.
Just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just.
Oh, and by the way, the smart city thing, that's not a conspiracy either. I read this whole, they basically lay it out here. I might do a video soon going through exactly what they want to do to Los Angeles. But that video, when I watched it, I got the craziest sense of deja vu, because the very governor that he brought up, Josh Green, the governor of Hawaii, when the fires in Lahaina happened, a very similar video of him came out where it was just as controversial. People were like, excuse me? Same timing. Literally, while people didn't even know if their family members were alive or not. This is what Josh Green said.
About ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to people who were lost.
And the thing is, literally nobody asked for that. Nobody asked for that. But let's fast forward for a few minutes and go to, well, we're fast forwarding from that video, but we're backtracking from January in Los Angeles. December 17th, 2024, Western state governors eye public lands for affordable housing and development. And this summit that happened in Las Vegas in December of 2024, a month before these fires took place, the governor of Colorado, the governor of Miami, what? The governor of Nevada.
I don't know where that came from.
And
Not even
Josh
a
Green
state.
himself, the governor of Hawaii. And they were talking about ways in which they can acquire federal land to put low-income housing. See, in a lot of these Western states, they have a huge problem because the federal government owns a lot of the land. In Nevada alone, the federal government owns 85% of the land. In California, the federal government owns about 50% of the land. And they do this for parks, recreation, wildlife, stuff like that. But they are looking at ways where they can subvert some of this stuff, buy that land on the cheap, and put all of these high density, low income housing units. They're already doing this, if you want to pause to read, in resort mountain towns in Colorado. But you see what I'm saying? They are creating this problem by mass importing low income workers and then saying we have a low income housing problem. So there it is. Do with that what you will. I think this is super fishy, but the good news is that people are waking up to this and they're like, no, thank you. We don't want a lot of ugly buildings to stare at. It's so funny because before I really realized what was actually going on here, the people, I remember seeing news reports about they would demonize suburbs that didn't want to put low income housing in their neighborhoods. And now I know why. Now I know exactly why they were opposed to that, and they would demonize the people in the suburbs. So like, oh, you don't want poor people around you. It actually doesn't have anything to do with that. But Gavin Newsom is actually facing another recall, and Karen Bass is too. Karen Bass billboards. Karen Bass has billboards all over Los Angeles calling for her to be recalled. Oh yeah. So we learned more about Karen Bass. There's billboards all over Los Angeles calling for Karen Bass to get recalled. There's actually a brand new recall effort against Gavin Newsom. When I lived in California, I was getting signatures to recall Gavin Newsom, but our recall effort didn't go through. We actually pushed it to an election, but it didn't go through. That's the one that Larry Elder was running against him, but the people voted back in Gavin Newsom, or did they? That's up for debate now. But Karen Bass is being called on to get recalled. There's a petition going on about her right now. Los Angeles is literally turning red because that's how bad this fire was. Gavin Newsom is facing another recall. The good news is I think his political career is done. Whatever damage he tries to do to California before he's out, I think he's done. And I think Karen Bass is done. And one more thing before we go, Karen Bass. Let me see what this video says. Oh, it's going to get copyrighted. So what we found out about Karen Bass is that she's actually a really big fan of communist Cuba. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. She was a really big fan of Fidel Castro. She actually went to Cuba 8 times. She went to Cuba 8 times. And when Fidel Castro passed away, she praised him. So that's Karen Bass for you. That is the mayor of Los Angeles. And thankfully, I think people saw her true colors. I'm really glad that Donald Trump went there and was listening to the people. We don't know what's going to happen with these low-income housing projects, but a lot of people are sharing it. So hopefully they push back and that doesn't happen. These are beautiful areas. And what's really frustrating is they're trying to do this to some of the most beautiful property or some of the most beautiful areas in all of the country. Lahaina, that was the governor of Hawaii trying to do that to Lahaina. Pacific Palisades, Altadena, Colorado. If you read in that article that I showed you about the governors that met in Las Vegas, they approved a low-income, high-density workers. They say it's for the workers. Why don't you raise their wages and then they won't need all that low-income, high-density housing? Do you think they want to live in a small apartment? No, most people don't. That's usually a transitionary thing. Living in an apartment is usually an area of transition in your life or an area of getting it together, or what young people do. That's not the American dream for lower income workers. And it used to be that someone working construction or someone working on these job sites used to be able to afford a home. So maybe instead of building all these ugly communist China buildings, we could ask ourselves why the construction worker can't afford to buy a home anymore. Is it maybe because the wages have been lowered and the housing has gone up because you're importing mass amounts of illegal immigrants? Could that be one of the things? Oh, in New York City, now I'm going off in a tangent. I should get off here. In New York City with their congestion pricing, how many illegal immigrants are in New York City that are causing some of this traffic? Your traffic would go down. Your housing prices would go down. Your wages would go up. Anywho. All right, you all. That was supposed to be a 10-minute video. And now we're 50 minutes. So thank you all for watching. That was a good stream, I feel like. Thank you for watching. That was a lot of fun, and I'll see you later. You all have a great Friday night. Bye. BlackRock owns 1 out of 3 homes. Ugh. Yuck. I just saw see, I keep stop talking. I read the chat and then I stop and I start talking again. I just saw the BlackRock CEO. I think his name is Larry Fink. He was just getting interviewed in Davos. Maybe we'll talk about that. All right. Bye, you guys. Have a great night. See ya.